The transport shuttle hummed through the darkness of space, carrying its precious cargo back to Haven's rest station. Inside, Quan sat among 6 young Veltharons, their fur patterns glowing softly in the dim cabin light. The cubs chattered excitedly about the mineral formations they had studied on the nearby moon, their voices a mixture of chirps and purrs that Quan had learned to understand over 3 years of patient work. Rix, the smallest of the group, pressed against Quan's side. The cub's large eyes reflected the stars outside the viewport. "Quan, teacher, will we see the crystal caves again?" Rix asked in halting standard language. Quan smiled and placed a gentle hand on the cub's head, careful not to disturb the sensitive ear tufts. "Yes, little one. Next month, if your parents agree." He had spent years earning the trust of the Veltharan people. They were a cautious species, protective of their young, and humans were still relatively new to this sector of space. But Quan's genuine respect for their culture had opened doors that remained closed to most outsiders. The pilot, a Veltharan adult named Thrall, called back from the cockpit. Approaching Haven's rest, docking in 10 minutes. Quan began gathering the cubs' equipment, helping them pack their sample containers and data tablets. This was the part of his job he loved most, seeing the wonder in young eyes as they discovered the universe. He believed that education and understanding between species was the key to lasting peace. The explosion changed everything. The shuttle lurched violently to one side. Emergency lights blazed red. Thrall roared something in the Veltharan language that Quan's translator couldn't process fast enough. The cubs screamed, tumbling across the cabin as artificial gravity failed. "Hold on," Quan shouted, grabbing Rix and another cub named Mika. He pulled them close, wrapping his arms around their small bodies. Through the viewport, he saw a ship, sleek, black, unmarked. Pirates. Raiders. It didn't matter what they called themselves. They were predators. Plasma fire streaked past the viewport. Thrall piloted with desperate skill, weaving through the attacks. But the raider ship was faster and better armed. Another blast struck the shuttle's rear. The cabin filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. "We're losing power," Thrall called out. "I'm sending a distress signal." Quan's mind raced. They were still 15 minutes from the station, maybe more at their current damaged speed. He looked at the cubs clustered around him, their eyes wide with terror. Some were barely 5 years old in Veltharan terms. They didn't deserve this. The raider ship pulled alongside. Through the viewport, Quan could see figures moving inside, humanoid, wearing combat gear. They were preparing to board. This wasn't a random attack. Pirates usually targeted cargo ships, not educational transports with nothing valuable aboard except him. Quan's blood ran cold. 2 weeks ago he had discovered something during a routine survey. Illegal harvesting operations in protected Veltharan breeding grounds. He had documented everything, prepared to submit his findings to the proper authorities. Someone had found out. Someone wanted him silenced. "They're boarding." Thrall's voice cracked with fear. "Quan, take the cubs to the back compartment." "Lock yourselves in." Quan didn't hesitate. "Come on, little ones." Quickly now. He herded the cubs toward the rear of the shuttle. Rix clung to his leg, too frightened to move fast. Quan scooped the small cub into his arms and ran. The airlock exploded inward just as they reached the back compartment. Armed figures poured through the breach, their weapons raised. Quan shoved the cubs through the doorway, counting heads frantically. 5 inside. Where was the 6th? Mika, the cub, had frozen near the front seats, paralyzed by fear. "Stay here," Quan commanded the others. He slammed the compartment door and ran back toward Mika. Behind him, he heard small paws scratching at the door and Rix's voice calling his name. The raiders spread through the cabin. Their leader, a tall human with cold eyes, pointed his weapon at Thrall. "Where's the xenobiologist?" Thrall snarled, showing teeth. "I don't know who you—" "The raider shot him." Thrall collapsed with a cry of pain. "No," Quan shouted. He grabbed Mika and turned to run, but the raiders had already spotted him. "Target acquired," the leader said calmly into his comm. "Quan the human. Eliminate him." 3 raiders raised their weapons. Quan had nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. He looked down at Mika, trembling in his arms, and made his choice. He had always made the same choice. Protect the young. Protect the innocent. He threw himself over Mika, covering the cub completely with his body as the raiders opened fire. The first plasma bolt hit his shoulder. White-hot agony exploded through his arm. The second struck his back. The third and fourth hit his legs. Quan screamed but held on to Mika, curling tighter around the small body beneath him. Stop shooting. You'll hit the cargo, someone yelled. The weapon's fire ceased. Quan's world was pain and the smell of his own burnt flesh. He couldn't feel his legs. His vision blurred. But he could feel Mika's rapid heartbeat beneath him. Still alive, still safe. Heavy footsteps approached. The human still alive. Finish him. Through the haze of pain, Quan heard a new sound. Alarms. Sirens. And then weapons fire from a different direction. Veltharan security had arrived. Faster than the raiders expected. Haven's rest station had heard the distress signal. Retreat. We're outnumbered. The raider leader barked. They ran. Quan heard them scrambling back to their ship. Heard the airlock seal. Heard their vessel disengage with a clang that shook the shuttle. Then silence, broken only by the alarms and his own labored breathing. Quan. Quan teacher! Small voices. The cubs had broken out of the back compartment. He tried to speak but couldn't. His blood was spreading across the floor. Too much blood. A human body only held so much. He was losing consciousness, the edges of his vision going dark. Mika crawled out from under him, crying but unhurt. Good. That was good. Then Rix was there, small paws pressing against his chest. The cub's face filled his fading vision.
Quan teacher, stay awake.
Help is coming. Quan tried to smile, tried to tell Rix it would be okay, but the darkness was pulling him down. No. No, you don't. Rix's voice was fierce, desperate. The cub pressed harder on his chest as if tiny paws could hold his life inside his body. You're not perishing until I find the one responsible. You hear me, Quan teacher? You're not allowed to die. Other voices now. Adult Veltharan's security forces, medical teams. But Quan could barely hear them anymore. Rix's voice was the last thing he heard before the darkness took him completely. I promise, Quan teacher. I promise. They won't get away with this, then nothing. The medical facility smelled of antiseptic and strange chemicals that Rix didn't recognize. The cub sat on a chair that was too big, paws dangling above the floor, watching through the transparent wall as doctors worked on Quan's broken body. The human looked so small on the medical platform, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed and kept him alive. Dr. Hana moved between the machines with practiced efficiency, but her tail was twitching, a sign of stress among Veltharans. She had been working for 6 hours straight, ever since they brought Quan in. Human medicine was not taught in Veltharan medical schools. She was learning as she went, using every database and reference she could access. The plasma burns are deep, Hana said to her assistant. Human skin doesn't regenerate like ours, and these projectile wounds, I don't understand how their internal organs function. What if I'm missing something critical? Rix's ears pinned back. The doctors were scared. If the doctors were scared, that meant Quan might really die. Rix. A gentle voice. The cub's mother, Vesa, placed a paw on Rix's shoulder. Come home, little one. You need to eat. You need to rest. No. Rix. I said no. The cub's voice was sharper than Rix had ever used with a parent. He stayed with me when the fire came. I stay with him now. Vesa and Thrall exchanged worried looks. Thrall's arm was bandaged where the raider had shot him, but he had refused to stay in his own medical bed. He wanted to be with his child, to comfort Rix, but the cub was inconsolable. He protected all of you, Thrall said softly. He is a good human, but you sitting here won't heal him. Maybe it will, Rix said stubbornly. Maybe he can hear me. Maybe he knows someone is waiting. Dr. Hana emerged from the treatment room, pulling off her surgical covering. She looked exhausted. We've stabilized him for now, but I won't lie to you. His condition is critical. Human medical supplies are 3 days away. I don't. She paused, her tail drooping. I don't know if he has 3 days. Rix jumped down from the chair and walked to the transparent wall, pressing both paws against it. Then I'll make sure he fights for 3 days. The adults didn't know what to say to that. They let Rix stay. As night cycle began on the station, the medical wing grew quiet. Rix remained at the window, watching Quan's chest rise and fall with the help of machines. The cub began talking softly at first, then with more confidence. Quan teacher, I remember everything about the attack. I'm going to tell you, and you're going to help me figure out who did this. Rix's voice was steady, focused. There were 5 raiders. The leader was tall, human like you. He had a scar on his left cheek. His eyes were gray, cold eyes. Inside the treatment room, one of the machines chirped. Quan's heart rate had increased slightly. Their ship was black with red markings on the side. Not a language I know. Angular shapes. And the engines, they made a sound like thunder before rain, but deeper. I'll never forget that sound. Another chirp. The medical monitor showed increased brain activity. Dr. Hana, who had been resting in her office, came running. She checked the readings, her eyes widening. Keep talking, she told Rix. He's responding to your voice. Encouraged, Rix continued. The leader spoke to someone on his comm. He said your name, Quan Teacher. Target acquired, Quan the human. Eliminate him. He knew who you were. This wasn't random. The medical bay doors opened. A human woman in a communications uniform entered, looking tired and worried. I'm Yuna, she said. I work in the station's communications center. I heard what happened. Quan was my friend. Is he alive? Dr. Hana said. Barely. Yuna approached the window, placing her hand on the glass next to where Rick sat. I should have been with him today. I was supposed to go on that field trip, but I had to cover an extra shift. Her voice cracked. This is my fault. No, Rick said firmly. The fault belongs to the ones who shot him. But I'm going to find them. I remember everything. Yuna looked at the small cub with surprise and growing respect. Tell me what you remember. All of it. For the next hour, Rix recounted every detail of the attack. The cub's memory was perfect, a trait of young Veltherans before their neural pruning at adolescence. Yuna pulled out a data tablet and began recording everything, occasionally asking questions to clarify details. The weapons they used, Yuna said thoughtfully. You said they had a blue glow before firing? Yes. And they made a buzzing sound. That's military-grade plasma weaponry, not the cheap stuff pirates use. Someone funded this operation. Yuna's expression hardened. And you said the leader mentioned not hitting the cargo? Yes. What does that mean? It means they wanted something from that shuttle besides killing Quan. Maybe they planned to take you cubs. Ransom, maybe. Or... Yuna's face darkened. The illegal operations Quan was investigating. They were harvesting from Veltheran breeding grounds. Perhaps they trade in... Don't say it. Dr. Hana interrupted sharply. Not in front of the child, but Rix understood. They take cubs, sell them. The adults fell silent. It was every Veltheran parent's worst nightmare. We need to report this to station security, Yuna said. Captain Taman needs to know this wasn't just an attack on Quan. This is bigger. I'll go with you, Rix said, jumping down from the chair. Absolutely not, Vesa said. You're staying here where it's safe. Mother, I'm the only witness with perfect memory. They need me. Rix walked to the treatment room door and placed a paw on it. But I'll come back. I promised Quan Teacher I'd find who's responsible. I keep my promises. Vesa looked at her mate. Thrall sighed deeply. Our cub is growing up faster than we expected. Perhaps it's time we stopped protecting Rix from reality. I don't want Rix to grow up this fast, Vesa said quietly. Neither do I. But look at what that human did. He showed our child what it means to protect others, even at cost to yourself. Now Rix wants to honor that sacrifice. How can we say no? They couldn't. They gave their permission. Yuna and Rix went to station security together, an unlikely pair, a young human woman and a determined Veltharan cub. Captain Taman, a grizzled Veltheran with scars from many battles, listened to Rix's testimony with growing anger. This was a professional hit, he said, planned and funded by someone with resources. The question is who? Quan Teacher was investigating illegal harvesting, Rix said. Maybe start there. Smart cub, Taman said approvingly. I'll pull all reports Quan filed in the last month. If there's a connection, we'll find it. As they left the security office, Rix felt something strange. purpose, direction. The fear was still there, deep in the cub's chest, but it was being pushed aside by determination. Quan had saved Rix's life. Now Rix would fight for his. They returned to the medical wing as the morning cycle began. Rix resumed the vigil at the window, and Yuna pulled up a chair beside the cub. "You know," Yuna said softly, "when Quan first came to this station, nobody trusted him. Humans were too new, too different. But he never gave up. He just kept showing up, kept being kind, kept proving that humans could be trusted. He changed everything for human-Veltheran relations here." "He's a good teacher," Rick said. "The best. And you know what he told me once? He said the best part of his job was watching young minds discover how big the universe is. He said it gave him hope." Inside the treatment room, Quan's fingers twitched. Just slightly, but Dr. Hana saw it. "His brain activity is increasing," she called out. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Rix pressed closer to the glass. "I won't let you die, Quan teacher. You're going to wake up and you're going to see that I kept my promise. I'm going to find them. All of them." The machines beeped steadily. Quan's chest rose and fell. He was fighting, and so was Rix. Captain Taman's office was cluttered with data screens showing star charts, ship registries, and incident reports. Rick sat on a stack of supply crates to reach the desk height, studying the information with intense focus. 3 days had passed since the attack and Quan still hadn't woken, but he was stable and that was enough to keep Rix going. "Look at this," Yuna said, pointing to a document on her tablet. Quan filed 5 reports about illegal activity in the past 2 months. All of them mentioned the same sector, the Valix Nebula region. That's where the protected breeding grounds are located. Taman pulled up a map. The Valix Nebula is technically under Veltheran protection, but it's remote. Difficult to patrol. Perfect for illegal operations. His tail twitched with anger. If someone is harvesting there, they'd need serious resources. Ships, equipment, buyers. "I found something else," Rick said, surprising both adults. The cub had been studying ship logs from the station's traffic records. "The raider ship, I remember its engine signature. It's in here. It docked at Haven's Rest 6 times in the past year." "What?" Taman leaned forward. "Show me," Rix pointed to the entries. Each time, the ship was listed under a different name, a different registry. But the engine signature was the same, the unique sound pattern that Rix's perfect memory had captured. "They've been here before," Yuna said slowly. "They've been watching Quan, planning this." Taman's expression darkened. "And our own security logs let them dock. Someone must have authorized those clearances." He began pulling up the authorization records. Every one of these dockings was approved by Deputy Station Manager Hyun. The name hung in the air like a curse. "Hyun?" Yuna shook her head. "He's been here for 10 years. Are you saying he's corrupt?" "I'm saying we need to ask him some questions." Taman stood. "Rix, you should go back to your parents. This might get dangerous." "No." The cub's voice was firm. "I'm part of this investigation, and I'm the only one who can identify the raiders if we find them." Taman looked at the small Veltheran for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. But you stay behind me at all times. Understood?" "Understood." They found Deputy Station Manager Hyun in his office looking nervous. When Taman and his security team entered with Rix and Yuna, Hyun's face went pale. "Captain, what's the meaning of this?" "We need to discuss some ship authorizations you approved." Taman placed the data tablet on Hyun's desk. "This vessel docked here 6 times, each time under a false registry. Each time approved by you." Hyun glanced at the screen and swallowed hard. I approve hundreds of dockings. I can't be expected to remember every." "This ship attacked one of our shuttles," Taman continued. "They nearly killed a human xenobiologist and 6 Veltheran cubs. Now you're going to tell me why you kept approving their clearances." "I don't know what you're talking about." Rick stepped forward. "You're lying. Your ears are flattened and your pupils are wide. Those are fear responses in Veltherans. You know exactly what Captain Taman is talking about." Hyun stared at the cub in shock. Then his shoulders sagged. "They threatened my family," he said quietly. "My mate, my cubs. They said if I didn't approve the dockings, if I reported anything suspicious, they'd..." He couldn't finish. "Who threatened you?" Taman demanded. "I don't know names, but they work for a company called Terminus Extraction. They have people everywhere. Station officials, transport captains, even some security officers. You can't fight them, Taemin. They're too big. We'll see about that, Taemin growled. You're under arrest for conspiracy and aiding criminal activity. Wait. Hyun stood desperately. I can help you. I have recordings, communications. I saved everything in case I needed protection. It's all on a secure drive in my quarters. Taemin signaled his officers. Bring it. All of it. As they led Hyun away, Rix felt a mixture of emotions. Anger at his betrayal, but also understanding. He had been scared for his family, just like Rix had been scared during the attack. Fear made people do terrible things. Terminus Extraction, Yuna said, already searching her databases. I've heard that name. They're a mining and resource company. Officially, they operate in contested space, extracting minerals and gases. But there have been rumors. What kind of rumors? Taemin asked. The kind that get people killed for investigating too closely. Yuna's face was grim. They're suspected of illegal trafficking, rare animals, prohibited technology, and... She glanced at Rix. Other things. Cubs, Rix said flatly. They traffic cubs. That's what Quan teacher discovered, isn't it? That's why they tried to kill him. Yuna nodded slowly. I think so. And if we keep digging, they'll come after us too. Let them try, Taemin said. I'm done letting criminals operate on my station. They spent the next 2 days going through Hyun's files. The evidence was damning. Communications between Terminus Extraction representatives and various station officials. Payment records, shipping manifests that didn't match the official cargo logs, and photos, surveillance photos of Quan tracking his movements, his schedule, his research. They were hunting him, Yuna said softly, looking at the images. They knew everything about him. Rick studied one particular photo. It showed Quan with the cubs at a teaching session, smiling, unaware he was being watched. They thought he was alone. Easy to eliminate. They didn't understand. Didn't understand what? Taemin asked. That he wasn't alone. That we'd fight for him. Rix's small paws clenched into fists. They made a mistake. That night, as Rix returned to the medical wing for the daily vigil, Dr. Hana had news. His neural activity has increased significantly. I think he might be regaining consciousness soon. Maybe days, maybe hours, Rix's heart leaped. Can I talk to him? Of course. In fact, I encourage it. Your voice seems to help. Rick sat by the glass window and began talking, telling Quan everything they had discovered. We found out who's behind the attack, Quan teacher. A company called Terminus Extraction. They're the ones doing the illegal harvesting. They're the ones who hurt you. But we're building a case against them. We're going to stop them. Inside the room, Quan's eyelids fluttered. Captain Taemin says more investigators are coming from the central systems. Real authorities who can't be bribed. When you wake up, you can tell them everything you discovered. Your research will finally matter. It won't be for nothing. Quan's fingers moved, curling slightly. And Quan teacher, I learned something. I learned that being scared doesn't mean you stop fighting. You taught me that. You were scared in the shuttle, I could smell your fear, but you still protected us. That's real courage. Rix pressed a paw to the glass. So wake up soon, okay? I want to tell you in person that I kept my promise. I found the ones responsible. We all did together. Yuna entered the medical wing, but her expression made Rix's fur stand on end. What's wrong? Terminus Extraction knows we're investigating them. One of the corrupted officials must have warned them. Yuna knelt beside Rix. Captain Taemin thinks they might send another team to finish what they started, to kill Quan teacher and anyone else who knows too much. That includes you, Rix. The cub's fear returned sharp and cold. But then Rix thought about Quan lying in that medical bed fighting to survive. Thought about all the evidence they'd gathered. Thought about the other cubs who might be taken if Terminus Extraction wasn't stopped. Then we prepare, Rix said. We don't run. We fight, Yuna smiled sadly. You really are Quan's student, aren't you? I'm his friend, Rix corrected. And friends protect each other. Outside Haven's rest station in the darkness of space, a ship approached. Its hull was black, its markings red and angular. Inside, armed mercenaries prepared their weapons. They had orders: eliminate all witnesses. Leave no evidence. Terminus Extraction was willing to kill an entire station if necessary to protect their operations. But they didn't know what was waiting for them. They didn't know that one determined cub had united humans and Veltharans in common cause. They didn't know that the entire station had heard the story of Quan's sacrifice and Rix's promise. They were about to learn what happened when you threatened someone that humanity and the Veltherans had decided to protect. The battle was coming. The first thing Quan felt was pain. It rolled through his body in waves, sharp and burning. The second thing he felt was the steady pressure of something small and warm, pressed against his hand. The third thing was a voice, young and familiar, speaking softly in the darkness. And then Captain Taemin arrested 3 more corrupt officials. They're all connected to Terminus extraction. Your research was right, Quan teacher. Everything you documented was true. Quan's eyes felt heavy, glued shut. He tried to open them, managed only a flutter. Light flooded in, too bright. He groaned. The pressure on his hand increased. Quan teacher, Dr. Hana. He's waking up. Footsteps rapid and light. A Veltheran voice speaking medical terms. Cool gel being applied to his forehead. Gradually, Quan's eyes adjusted. Shapes became clearer. He saw white ceiling panels, medical equipment, and a small furry face with large, hopeful eyes. Rix? His voice came out as a rasp, painful and weak. Yes, it's me. The cub's tail was wagging so fast it was almost a blur. You're awake. You're really awake. Dr. Hana appeared, checking the monitors with professional efficiency while her tail betrayed her excitement. Welcome back, Quan. You've been unconscious for 5 days. Don't try to move too quickly. Your injuries were severe, 5 days. Quan's mind struggled to process. He remembered the attack, the pain, covering Mika with his body. The cubs, he whispered. Are they? Safe. All safe because of you. Dr. Hana's expression softened. You saved them all. Especially this stubborn little one who refused to leave your side. Quan looked at Rix. Really looked. The cub seemed different somehow, older, more serious. Rix. What happened? So much, Quan teacher. So much. Rix began explaining everything. The investigation, the evidence, the corrupt officials, Terminus extraction. The words poured out in an excited rush. I kept my promise. I found the ones responsible. Quan tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his back. Dr. Hana gently pressed him back down. Rest, you're not healed yet. The human medical supplies arrived 2 days ago, which is the only reason you're alive. But you still need time. There isn't time. Quan's mind was working now, piecing together what Rix had told him. Terminus extraction. They're bigger than you think. More dangerous. If they know you've been investigating. They do know, came a new voice. Quan turned his head carefully. A human woman stood in the doorway, Yuna from communications. Behind her was Captain Taemin and several security officers. And behind them, surprisingly, were dozens of Veltherans. The medical wing had filled with visitors. Word spread about what you did, Taemin explained. How you protected our young. The whole station has been following your recovery, and when they heard about Rix's investigation, they wanted to help. We're not letting Terminus extraction hurt anyone else, said Vesa, Rix's mother, pushing through the crowd. Human or Veltheran, not on our station. Quan felt overwhelmed. I don't understand. Why would everyone... Because you showed us what you humans are made of, Taemin said simply. You could have run during that attack. You could have saved yourself. But you didn't, you stayed. You protected cubs that weren't even your own species. That means something to us. It means everything, Thrall added, his injured arm in a healing wrap. You earned our trust and respect through 3 years of patient work. Then you proved it with your blood. We Veltherans do not forget such things. Rix climbed carefully onto Quan's bed, mindful of his injuries. Also, you're my teacher. And my friend. And friends protect each other, right? Quan felt tears sting his eyes. He hadn't expected this. Any of this. Right, he whispered. Now, Yuna said, pulling up a chair and activating her data tablet. We need to know everything you discovered about Terminus extraction. The investigators from the central systems will arrive in 3 days. But we need your testimony to build the case. Despite his pain, Quan began talking. He explained how he had been conducting routine surveys in the Valix Nebula when he noticed unusual ship traffic. He had investigated and found evidence of harvesting operations in protected breeding grounds. But it was worse than simple poaching. They were taking cubs, Quan said, his voice growing stronger with anger despite his weakness. Veltheran cubs, selling them to collectors, to facilities that wanted exotic aliens. I documented everything, ship manifests, communications, transfer records. I was preparing to submit it all to the authorities when they decided to eliminate you. Captain Taman finished. Where is this documentation? Encrypted on my personal data core. In my quarters. Access code is... He rattled off a long string of numbers. Una was already transmitting the information to security. We'll retrieve it immediately. There's more, Quan continued. Terminus Extraction has connections to some mid-level officials in the central government. That's how they've operated for so long. But I found evidence linking them to Senator Wan, who sits on the Commerce and Species Protection Committee. If we can prove he's been taking bribes, we can bring down the whole network, Una finished, her eyes wide. Quan, this is huge. This is so much bigger than we thought. It's why they want me dead, and now everyone who helped investigate is in danger too. Quan looked at Rix. You should have stayed hidden, little one. You should have let the adults handle this. You didn't stay hidden, Rix countered. When the shooting started, you didn't hide. So neither did I. Quan couldn't argue with that logic. He'd taught Rix too well. A security officer burst into the medical wing, breathing hard. Captain, we have multiple ships approaching the station. They're not responding to hails. Defense grid is tracking them. How many? Taman demanded. 6 vessels, all armed, military grade. Terminus Extraction had sent their response. The medical wing erupted into controlled chaos. Taman barked orders, sending security teams to defensive positions. Una began coordinating communications, sending emergency signals to nearby Alliance patrols. Parents grabbed their cubs, preparing to evacuate to the station's protected core. Get Quan to the emergency shelter, Dr. Hana ordered her staff. No, Quan said, trying to sit up again despite the pain. I won't hide while others fight. You can barely move. Dr. Hana protested. Then give me something for the pain and help me up. His voice had steel in it now. Those people came here to kill me. I won't let anyone else die in my place. Stubborn human, Dr. Hana muttered. But she was already preparing an injection of painkillers and stimulants. This will help for maybe an hour. Then your body will crash hard. Use the time wisely. The medication hit his system like fire. The pain receded to a manageable level. Quan swung his legs over the side of the bed, gritting his teeth against the burning in his muscles. Una and Thrall helped him stand. What's your plan? Taman asked. They want me? They can have me. As bait, Quan's mind was racing. But we need to be ready for them. Is there a way to contact the human military liaison? Jinho is 3 hours away with a support fleet, Una said, checking her communications. He's been monitoring the situation since we reported it. 3 hours. We need to hold them off for 3 hours. Quan looked around at the assembled Veltharans, at the determined faces of people who had become his family. Can we do that? We're not running, Rick said firmly. We're not hiding. We fight. The cub's words seemed to ripple through the crowd. Heads nodded. Tails straightened. Fear was still there, but it was being pushed aside by something stronger. Determination. Unity. Purpose. For our cubs, Vesa said. For our station, Taman added. For our friend, Thrall finished, putting his good arm around Quan's shoulders to support him. Through the medical wing's viewport, Quan could see the approaching ships dark against the stars. 6 vessels full of mercenaries and killers, all coming to finish what they started. But this time, Quan wasn't alone. This time, an entire station stood with him, human and Veltharan together, ready to prove that some bonds were stronger than fear. Let them come, Quan said quietly. The battle for Haven's Rest was about to begin. The 6 ships moved through space like hungry predators, their weapon systems glowing hot with ready fire. Inside the lead vessel, Commander Drake reviewed his mission parameters one final time. Eliminate all witnesses, destroy all evidence, leave no survivors if necessary. Terminus Extraction was paying enough credits for him to retire after this job. He just had to kill 1 wounded human and anyone stupid enough to protect him. Easy money, he told his crew. These station rats won't know what hit them. He was wrong. Haven's Rest Station had transformed in the hours since the warning came. Captain Taman had activated every defensive system, some of which hadn't been used in years. Blast doors sealed off critical sections. The station's old defense turrets, relics from the border conflicts decades ago, were powered up and manned by volunteers. Every security officer was armed and positioned, and the civilians, rather than evacuating, had organized themselves into support teams. This is insane, Una muttered, checking the modified communications array. We're a trading station, not a military base. We're a community, Taman corrected. And we protect our own. Quan stood in the station's command center, leaning heavily against a console. The painkillers were doing their job, but he could feel his body protesting every movement. Rick stood beside him, small but determined, wearing a child-sized emergency vest that made the cub look even tinier. You should be with your parents in the shelter, Quan said for the 10th time. You should be in a medical bed, Rick's countered. But here we are. The station's sensors detected the incoming ships at 300,000 kilometers. Taman activated the communication channel. Unidentified vessels, this is Haven's rest station. You are approaching restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Silence. Then weapons fire. The first plasma barrage struck the station's outer shields, making the deck shake. Red emergency lights flashed. Children cried in the shelters below. But the shields held. Return fire, Taman ordered. The ancient defense turrets came to life, spitting projectiles and energy beams at the attacking ships. 2 of the mercenary vessels took hits, their shields flaring bright. They hadn't expected resistance. They're spreading out, reported a sensor officer. Trying to surround us. Let them, Quan said, studying the tactical display. The more they commit to the attack, the longer they'll be here when help arrives. We just need to survive. A Veltheran security officer named Day ran into the command center. They're launching boarding pods. 4 of them heading for our docking bays. Seal all external airlocks except Bay 7, Taman commanded. Funnel them where we want them. That's a trap, Yuna realized. Exactly. Taman's tail swished with grim satisfaction. We may be traitors, but we remember how to hunt. The boarding pods slammed into docking Bay 7, cutting through the outer doors with plasma torches. 30 mercenaries in full combat armor poured into the station, weapons raised. They moved with professional precision, expecting minimal resistance from frightened civilians. They got something very different. The bay doors slammed shut behind them, not broken, but deliberately sealed. Lights flickered and died, plunging the mercenaries into darkness. Emergency lights created confusing shadows, and then the Veltherans attacked. In darkness and confined spaces, the feline aliens were in their element. They moved like ghosts, their natural stealth making them nearly invisible. Security officers struck from vents and maintenance crawlways. Civilians threw improvised flash charges and smoke grenades. The mercenaries fired wildly, hitting walls and each other more than their targets. Report, Commander Drake screamed over the comm. Team 1, report. We're under attack. They're everywhere. We can't. The transmission cut off in a scream. Drake's face twisted with rage. This was supposed to be simple. Team 2, proceed to the medical wing. Find the human and kill him. Team 3, with me. We're going to the command center. Quan watched the battle unfold on multiple screens. The defenders were holding, but barely. The mercenaries were better trained and equipped. As soon as they adapted to the Veltheran tactics, the balance would shift. They're sending a team here, Yuna said, monitoring communications traffic. At least a dozen soldiers. Good, Quan said. That's what we want. The longer they hunt me, the longer until Jinho arrives with reinforcements. And if they kill you before then? Rix asked quietly. Then you make sure my research reaches the right people. Promise me, Rix, the cub's ears flattened. I won't have to. Because you're not dying today. The command center doors shook as something heavy impacted them. The mercenaries had arrived. Taman positioned his remaining officers at defensive positions. Everyone who can't fight, get behind the inner barriers. I can fight, Quan said, accepting a plasma pistol from a security officer. His hands shook, but his grip was firm. The doors exploded inward. Mercenaries poured through the gap, firing at anything that moved. The Veltheran officers returned fire, creating a deadly crossfire. One mercenary went down, then another. But there were too many. Commander Drake stepped through the smoke, his weapon targeting Quan immediately. There you are. You've caused my employers a lot of trouble, xenobiologist. Good, Quan replied, raising his own weapon despite knowing he was outmatched. That was the plan. Brave words from a dying man. Drake's finger tightened on the trigger. Rix moved faster than anyone expected, darting forward and sliding between Drake's legs in a move pure instinct. The small cub bit down hard on the commander's ankle, not deep enough to seriously injure, but painful and surprising enough to throw off his aim. The shot went wide. Quan fired back, his bolt striking Drake's shoulder armor. The commander roared in pain and anger, turning his weapon toward the small cub at his feet. No! Quan lunged forward, injured body screaming in protest. He tackled Drake from the side, both of them crashing to the deck. The impact sent fresh agony through Quan's barely healed wounds. He felt something tear inside him, but he held on, keeping Drake's weapon pointed away from Rick's. The command center erupted into close combat. Veltharans and humans fighting side by side against the mercenaries. Taman moved like a warrior half his age, his claws leaving deep marks in enemy armor. Yuna fought with surprising skill, using her smaller size to her advantage. Quan and Drake struggled on the floor. The commander was stronger, his armor protecting him. He slammed his fist into Quan's wounded side. Quan gasped, vision going white with pain. Drake raised his weapon again. A plasma bolt took Drake in the chest, punching through his armor. He looked down in shock, then collapsed. Thrall stood in the doorway holding a smoking rifle, his injured arm forgotten. Nobody hurts my child's teacher. Around the room, the tide was turning. The mercenaries, realizing they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered in unfamiliar territory, began falling back. Some tried to retreat to their ships. Others surrendered. Station-wide alert, came a new voice over the communication system. This is Commander Jin Ho of the Human Alliance Defense Force. We have arrived with 3 warships. All hostile vessels. Power down your weapons immediately or be destroyed. Through the command center's viewport, Quan could see them, 3 sleek military vessels, their weapons locked on the mercenary ships. The cavalry had arrived. The remaining mercenary ships tried to run. 2 made it to jump distance and vanished into hyperspace. The other 4, damaged from the station's defense turrets, had no choice but to surrender. Jinho's forces boarded them within minutes, taking prisoners. The battle for Haven's Rest was over. The defenders had won. Quan lay on the deck, bleeding again, his stimulants finally wearing off. Rix pressed against his side, small paws applying pressure to his reopened wounds. Stay awake, Quan teacher. You have to see this through. Did we win? Quan asked, his voice weak. We won, Taemin confirmed, kneeling beside them. You won. Your research is safe. The prisoners are talking. Terminus extraction is finished. Dr. Hana arrived, medical kit in hand, already scolding. I told you the stimulants would crash. I told you not to fight. Had to, Quan managed. They came for Rix. You humans, she muttered, but her hands were gentle as she worked. So stubborn. So foolish, so necessary. Over the following weeks, the truth came out. The evidence Quan had gathered, combined with testimony from captured mercenaries and corrupted officials, dismantled Terminus Extraction's entire operation. Senator Wan was arrested. Illegal harvesting sites were shut down. Dozens of trafficked cubs were rescued and returned to their families. Quan spent most of that time recovering in the medical bay, properly this time. Rix visited every day, no longer keeping vigil for someone dying, but spending time with a friend who lived. They talked about the attack, about the investigation, about the battle, processing it all together. You know what I learned? Rix said one day, watching ships come and go through the viewport. What's that, little one? That being strong isn't about being big or having weapons. It's about choosing to protect others even when you're scared. That's what you taught me. Quan smiled. And you taught me something too. That promises matter. That determination can move mountains. That even the smallest voice can make a difference if it refuses to be silenced.